Hey guys, we're gonna be pulling a light today, so I wanted to show you how we do that, the process for it. Anytime we have a light change, first step is always just to go to the panel and turn the light on so we know which one we're looking for. So Kami will beat me to it today. We have the lights on, service mode, press the buttons to turn the lights on so that we know which light we're actually going to be swapping out. So first step, once we find which lights are bad, the first step we always do is just pull the light all the way out so that we can locate where the light is in the junction box. Okay, so once we get the light pulled out of the fitting down here, you can see it's a little bit out. Can you see? It's a little bit out. So we're gonna pull this all the way out as far as we can. Everything's still connected on the back. So we pulled that out of the wall. So what we need to do is look for the shortest wire. I think it's this one. So I'm gonna pull on this one. That didn't move. I'm gonna pull on this one and that moved. So this wire, now we're gonna go back to the pool and see, just making sure that that light drew back into the wall a little bit. Yeah, so now you can see that light drew itself back in. So that tells me that we have the right wire in the back. That's that second. So next step, we want to take about 4 or 5 feet of the wire off of the new light. We're going to attach the end of this to the end of the wire inside the junction box. What that's going to do is going to allow us to pull the light all the way up onto the deck so that we can attach the new light. So we're just going to disconnect, double check, make sure power is off. So inside here, you can see the conduit comes from this junction box from the transformer. So the transformer is the thing that takes the 120 volts, steps it down to 12 volts for these lights. So the power comes in from the panel, comes into the junction box, gets stepped down to 12 volts, and then goes out to the lights. So these wires coming into the junction box, they can be 120 volts, but most of the time, if you're dealing with low voltage lighting, this is going to be 12 volts. So not dangerous, but always good practice to just turn it off when you're working. So we know the light that we want to connect to is this one. And how we do that, we always take our wires, stick them together, and then fold the wires back onto themselves. Last step, once you have this connected, always put a knot in the end of this. Because when we go out to the pool deck and we pull that light, we don't want to pull this all the way into the conduit. So we always need a knot on the end of it to make sure that when this gets pulled, it's not going to go into the conduit. So last step is always a knot. Let's go out, head over there, and I'll show you how we connect the new light. So next step, before we can connect the new light, we have to unwrap this wire, right? So what we do, clip one, and I'm going to grab our pool pole, and I'm going to stick the pool pole inside. What this does is just makes it so that it can't unravel and then get tied in a knot. If we have this like this, it's going to keep it nice and flat and nice and organized. So that through. Once we get that, notice every time I'm touching a tool, the tool's going back in its spot, right? It's not going down to the ground, it's going right back where it belongs. So once we get this unclipped, we want to basically unroll this wire. We don't want to just pull it out, we want to unroll it all the way so that it lies flat. We're gonna take about 4 inches, just enough that we can get a good connection to the wires underneath. So just cut the black insulation. I'm gonna cut that back. So good practice is to always just throw your trash in the box so you don't have to pick it up, clean it up later. So strippers come back. We're gonna grab the light out of the conduit. Remember, this is the one that we connected the jumper to, the cord. So we're just gonna pull this out. There we go. Now we can pull this up onto the deck since we added that little clip. So we're gonna cut this. And we're gonna do the same thing we did to this one over here. So we're gonna take about 4 inches. We're gonna cut the insulation off. Trying our best not to cut the wires, because the wires inside are what actually pull the new wire through. So we don't want to damage those. Trash in the bin. And then electrical tape. Same thing, throw them over each other, fold it back onto itself. So we're making 2 loops that catch onto themselves. Tape. And like I said before, on the inside, we want to make sure that these wires end nice and flat. Keep it tidy, keep it organized, so that there's not a big bump that's going to catch on fittings as it goes through the conduit. Okay, so once we get our 2 wires connected, now this is 1 wire, and we're going to pull this new light all the way through the conduit. So I've set the light itself over here. And then something you can do, especially if you're by yourself, makes it a lot easier, is you want to take this wire and you want to organize it. We're going to go down to the actual junction box and pull that wire through. About that knot being very important. This is why. If we didn't have that knot, this would have gone right through, and then we'd have nothing to pull on. So now, once we have it all set out, all we have to do is just pull on this wire, and what that's going to do is pull the wire that's in the pool, where we're just pulling it all the way through. You can sit here and pull it out manually, like this, hand over hand. If it's possible, if the pull is easy enough, the best way to do this is to get the momentum started and just start walking. So we're just going to pull, get it started, and we're just going to walk all the way out. So the tricky part with this is if we were to just spin this, we're gonna spin that coil up into a coil. The wire will coil up. So we wanna spin this counterclockwise 4 or 5 times to kind of prep the wire to tighten itself into the threads. So going backwards, reverse threading, 4, maybe 5 times, and then we're gonna push it in, and then you let it go and it just kind of spins right into place. So I'm pushing this backwards just to make sure I catch the right thread. Tool. Put that on. 1 more backwards twist. Click right in, and now I'm twisting to the right until it's tight. And then last step, just grab the correct cover. We want the gray with a full open, nothing blocking the light. We're just gonna stick this on. Just by hand. You don't need any tool, no special tool or anything. Just clip it right into place. Last step is just to go and reconnect those wires, and I'll show you over there how we do that. The thing that we do a little bit differently, we always want to leave enough wire when we replace these so that the next person who comes back to replace this in 5 to 10 years doesn't have to add that tail at the beginning. So we're going to leave 4 or 5 feet on the end of it. Cut it. We strip it the same length as all the other ones, about 4 inches. Strip it back. Once we get it stripped, we want to figure out basically what we're going to do with the rest of this wire. We're not just going to tuck it in there. We're going to actually push this back down the hole that it came from. And that's why we take those little covers off. It allows us a little bit more room. So we want this one going here. So we want all this wire in here. Okay, so once we get all the way down, instead of that plastic clip that we took off, we take this loop and we put this right around. So that basically gives us a loop that we can't pull it out, and we have our tag here. So last step, once we get that done, is we take our wire strippers and we strip off about 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch of the insulation. And when we're rewiring these, it's very simple. We have a black and a white coming in from the transformer. All we need to do is gather all the whites together. Gather them all. If these are really nasty and corroded, sometimes I'll cut these and restrip them, but these look great. They're relatively new. Gather all of the white wires together. Clean them off. I give them like one quick twist together so that they all stick. And then we pull our white wire. It's not off. And then we wrap these around. We want the stranded end of the wires to end right at the top. You don't want 5 inches of solid core wire. We want it to end right at the top so that this wire nut can grab these stranded ends and compress them into that solid wire. So we do that. Tighten that up. All the whites with the white wire, all the blacks with the black wire. Thing one, try to get all of the insulation to end at the same spot. You don't want it to be, keep it neat, keep it orderly. One quick twist. And then twisting these wires up onto that solid core. And if you end a little short, you just push this wire up a little bit so that they kind of end right at the end. And that's it. So we just need these 2 screws, the top, throw the top back on, making sure we're properly seated. We're not pinching any wires in between the 2 halves, making sure everything's in and seated properly. Sits right, and then we're just gonna tighten this up. One, 2. Now, next step, the last step before you finish any repair is you always test function to make sure that we actually fix the problem. So we're gonna come back on. For these lights, I'm gonna turn them on and then off for 5 seconds and then back on, and that should put all of the lights to white. So we're gonna go on and then off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Click. Now we go check, make sure that all of our lights are functioning and they're on white. So that's the process of replacing a light. We always want to make sure we're fixing the problem from beginning to end, being safe, and then always testing function when we're finished with any repair, just to make sure that the problem is actually solved. So that's it for today.